Hello, lovely friends. So today we're going to do something different. I usually don't do weekly transits, but I thought since the eclipses are coming up, it'll be kind of nice to follow this narrative now, to see it through, see how it all works out. And we're going to start with this coming week from August 18th to August 24th. And just to give you guys a feel for this coming week, it's kind of like the universe is testing our readiness. So every conversation that we have, every decision that we make, in every way that we try to establish some connections, we're acutely feeling it. And it's important to remember, because the eclipses are coming up, every small choice that we make right now, it counts. Right now is a setup. Right now is a good time to become aware of the nuances and the subtleties. So this is kind of like a rehearsal, a dress rehearsal for what is about to come up in the month of September. And as we know, the eclipses don't wait for anyone. They're sudden, they can be chaotic, but they always have a precursor if we pay attention. So this week is the precursor for that. And the transits are going to bring their blessings this week, but they're also going to be challenging us. For example, as we'll see, they'll be asking us, do you have true conviction to say what you really want to say and to do what you say you really want to do? Do you have the willingness and the flexibility to pivot? And do you have it in you to confront the old patterns that are just creating this repetition in your life? Can you change them? Can you pivot there also? And this week kind of has a reward and a consequence. And so much of it is contingent on this understanding. So if we can confront these questions and if we can negotiate with them, we'll see that we're picking up some sort of a momentum. And on the other hand, the consequences, if we procrastinate, if we have tendencies where it creates stagnation, this week's going to augment them. But the purpose is for us to see it. It's giving us a glimpse to that eclipse portal, for lack of a better word, for what's coming up. So we're going to cover all the major transits of this video in one video. As you guys know, I usually do just one transit at a time and get into depth of it. But today we're just going to focus on the narrative and the flow of it. Otherwise, this video will be 15 hours long. And please note, this video is timestamped. So if you want to go back and forth on any of the days of the week from August 18th to 24th, you can do so. And before diving in, if you enjoyed this kind of deep analysis, for those of you who come back here, sometimes we get very philosophical or psychological. But if this is your flavor, this is your taste, please take a second to subscribe, comment, and like. You have no idea how much your participation helps me to actually make this content. As I grow this channel, makes more time, I can do more of this. And for you being here today, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the week. And we're going to start with Monday, because everything starts with Monday, even though technically it should start with Sunday. But here we go. So on Monday 18th, we have Mercury at 7 degrees of Leo, and it's sextiling Mars in the sign of Libra at 7 degrees. And all the transits, the images of it will be up on the side as I speak about it. And it's important to remember this sextile will hold for the entire week because Mars and Mercury will not get out of that 5-degree orb. So they're going to have an intimate sextile kind of conversation. And we got to remember, Mercury represents our intellect. So it's the way that we think, how we decode things, how we communicate, how we also listen and understand. And when we put Mercury in the sign of Leo, this aspect, these things that Mercury represents, they have an aim to become a sovereign force. That means Mercury in the sign of Leo wants to be recognized for what it's communicating, what it's saying, what it's thinking. It wants to communicate itself from a place of authority. And there's a sense of self-assurance and self-confidence in how it wants to express itself. Mercury wants to say, look, I'm in the center of my power and what I'm saying must have authority. But in general, the sign of Libra and what Libra represents challenges this autonomous, central, powerful figure that would be standing in the sign of Leo. So Leo's saying something about the voice of the king, the ultimate authority, while Libra is saying something about the voice of the people and the collective. And it's not like Libra wants to diminish Leo's voice. From sign aspect, they're sextile. So it's not like Libra's trying to shut it down. But Libra needs the king to understand that the king is for the kingdom and for the people. So Libra needs Leo to understand the relational dynamics, not just what it wants to say, the inclination that Mercury has right now. Now, when we take Mars, Mars is like a warrior who's starting to learn how to be diplomatic, especially under that 10-degree mark. We're learning how to do things. We're gaining maturity. So Mars is still here, is driven to act. It wants to pursue, it wants to push forward. It can even be pushy. But Mars is starting to figure out too. We're starting to figure out we're not on a battleground. We're in the realm of relationships. It's about making alliances, being diplomatic, being strategic, and creating agreements and cooperation. So Mars in Libra in general can't be the brute force that it wants to be. And if we want to act like Mars in the sign of Libra, we become very destructive. What we need to do this week, especially on Monday with the sextile, is a harmonious aspect. It's saying that how can we employ strategies? How can we be tactful? How can we negotiate? It's about having a keen awareness of what we say actually has a lot of power and it can impact other people. And other people can do that to us. Look at where the sign of Libra and Leo are sitting in your chart. Talking about those themes of life, those people that pertain to the themes of that house. So what it's saying that on Monday, we need this kind of an awareness to understand that our actions need to be tactful. Our ambitions and the way that we want to proceed and move forward has to be balanced with fairness. It has to generate cooperation. And the sextile is saying that yes, Mercury will declare itself, but we're going to aim to be inclusive and not to have a sense of exclusivity. So our aim this week should be, how do I bring mental sharpness and social intelligence together? For example, you might be at work, you want to express an idea, share an idea, speak up about something, or pitch an idea. But it's very important to understand the timing of things, the tone, in terms of how we express things. We just can't walk into this week thinking that I'm going to express myself because of what's in it for me. We have to approach it from a place of what's in it for us. And it's also important to remember that Mars is in an air sign, so fire is in air. And then Mercury, which is of the air element, is in a fire sign. So we're talking about quick thinking, direct expressions, but we have to remember to employ Libra's balance here, because Mars's quickness here can turn into disastrous impulsivity in terms of what we express, and we can come across very selfish. And this is not the time for it. So on the one hand, we have to be mindful, but at the same time, Monday is actually a great time if you need to book appointments where it requires negotiation, where you want to have a conversation and you really have a point that you need to express it very clearly. This is a great day for it. It's also a good day to pull your partner aside if there's something you've been meaning to tell them, like how things are unfair and what would be a better way of negotiating new terms and new ways of behavior. So if we can keep tact in mind, we can confidently speak our minds, we can keep our aim and our objective while at the same time taking other people into consideration. The art of negotiation. And just to give you an example, let's say you're a creative. This is a great day to share your ideas with someone else that you've been meaning to share it with them, especially if it's one that not only benefits you, but can benefit them also. So it's a project of collaboration. You guys are going to be talking about it. But then at the same time, I would suggest with Mars in Libra, it is in its exile. We can't forget that. Just because it's making a sextile to Mercury, it doesn't mean Mars is going to behave. So I would suggest not to overshare. One of the things that could happen with Mars in the sign of Libra, Mars can become a plagiarizer. So it can just ruthlessly take over other people's ideas, take credit for it, and just run with it. And then at the end of it, they'll just claim it for themselves and they will not give the credit. And if you're a creative and you've been working on something for a very long time, that kind of thing hurts. And that's why I'm using the word tact and strategy in terms of how we communicate and negotiate with other people. So it's not just I'm taking other people into consideration. You should have your own best interests at heart too, because Mars represents that individuality and what it is that we need to do and what we're about. And it's important to balance this out right now. So just to give you guys some self-inventory question to actually get this, the way we're being compelled right now, just to have it illuminated. There's going to be this urge to speak. So it's worth asking, why do I want to speak? That's Mercury, right? You can also ask, what is my aim and objective? That's Mars. Am I just speaking to be seen and heard? Or am I actually trying to create genuine connection? I'm actually trying to move a project forward in a collaborative manner. A lot of the times when we understand these underlying reasons within our psyche, we're better able to align ourselves not to lose our cool in certain situations, not to come out very overwhelming and overpowering. So now, with that said, let's move on to Tuesday, which is August 19th. And this is actually a beautiful and a comfortable day. But considering the narrative of the rest of the week, we can't treat transits in isolation. Like, you can't take one day of your life and say, this is my whole life. There's a continuity, there's an unfolding. So we have to treat the transits in the same way. And the kind of comfort we get here relative to the rest of the week and its narrative, it can actually be the kind of transit that can hold us back in some ways. And I'm talking about the brief conjunction between Moon and Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, which will be occurring at 15 degrees. And you know what, honestly, Jupiter and Moon conjunct in the sign of Cancer is kind of like finding shelter after a storm, just the kind of safety you suddenly feel and that sense of security and being grounded. It's about protection, nourishment, and feeling like you're in a safe space. But Cancer's safety is always involves some sort of a paradox, because we can hide in the sign of Cancer not to face certain things. And this time, as I was saying at the beginning of the video, is asking us to pivot and to create some sort of shifts and changes. So are we using the sign of Cancer at this time to hide from the necessary changes that we need to make? For example, Jupiter in Cancer wants to expand our sense of emotional security. But when we bring Moon in, Moon is desirous. Moon always wants to be comfortable. So does feeling good mean lingering to our old patterns that make us momentarily comfortable? But when we think about it, in the long run of life, these patterns are constantly just setting us back because we just want to be comfortable. And sometimes in life, you have to roll up your sleeve and get super uncomfortable. Another thing that can happen with this conjunction is that we can start to overextend our care and the way we want to nourish other people to create that comfort for them. And we also have to look at this just because of the entire narrative that's unfolding. Are we making other people actually feel secure and comfortable? Or are we becoming enablers by creating that comfort for someone else? So Tuesday in general can bring this heightened feeling of having empathy, having this pull towards self-nourishment and nourishing others, the desire to feel protected or to protect other people. Again, look at where it's a sign of Cancer's falling, in which house. But in this moment, we also have to be aware that some of this comfort and security that we're seeking are blind spots. Sometimes that generosity of nourishing others, taking care of others, is a subtle form of controlling outcomes or keeping people dependent on us. Maybe these are the things that need to change for some of us. So we're going to feel it so that we see it. That's the point this week. And I say this because, again, Mars and Mercury's sextile, that connection between them is still in effect. And we got to realize that Mars is in square position to this Moon-Jupiter conjunction. So this feeling of wanting to be comfortable, it does have an undertone of what the hell are you doing? So it's bringing a tinge of discomfort to the comfort that we so desire to have on Tuesday. And I would say, because there's so much compromise happening, and we saw it on Monday, right? I would suggest not to make commitments because someone just needs you. You have to assess, does it align to my own capacity? This week is very much understanding the context of we and not just me. And if you feel like I really need to just retreat today and just avoid everything, sometimes it's good to give into that. Sometimes we really need it. But sometimes that's a cue for us to understand some repetitive patterns that we have that are actually self-defeating. So this is the negotiation point for Tuesday, especially since Mars is also involved as a square by sign. Now we arrive to Wednesday and we have another lovely conjunction where Moon, the ruler of Cancer, forms a conjunction with Venus in the sign of Cancer at 23 degrees. So just to look at Moon and Venus for a second, Moon and Venus, when they're conjunct in Cancer especially, it's like the poetry of loving emotions and connections. It's about affection, loyalty as devotion. It's the way beauty is woven into care. But again, with all of its loveliness, we're going to have to learn something here, which again, strategy and care often go hand in hand, even though we don't realize it and even though we see it as something that's oppositional. And that's because if you think about it, love, Venus, a lot of times require a lot of foresight. That's the way we're able to protect what matters. And that often requires smart choices that are actually difficult to make. And making smart, difficult choices this week is coming from Mercury in Leo and Mars in Libra. And then to protect love is coming from that Mars Venus, and Moon is the holder and the feeler. So we can see how all of it is working together. In a lot of ways, this Wednesday, this conjunction is making us very attuned to the subtleties of our relationships. And because we have to have foresight, we can become aware of the ways that we're sentimental, where sentimentalities are actually making us avoid realities of our relationship, the way that we need to proceed, have that foresight to take the right actions. But our psyche is really going to want to preserve the sweetness of the moment. It doesn't want to deal with realities on Wednesday, but it's subtly coming in and it's worth being aware of it. Because like I was saying, if you're going to have that conversation with your significant other about something, yes, you're going to love them, but the subtle undertone is like, how do I also negotiate with you? Wednesday in general is a good day to engage in very delicate conversations that honors all parties involved. It has that loving care to be able to be receptive and to listen. Listening is such an important part of communicating. It's half of it. And it's also a very good and a beautiful day if you want to create something beautiful, if you want to beautify something, if you want to change the house decor, the decor of the room. But then again, beauty here can't be frivolous either. With this kind of a combination, beauty has to bring a sense of nourishment. It can't be superficial. So if you're all about that on Wednesday, go for it. And just to take Moon's transit over Jupiter and Venus into consideration, a self-inventory question we can ask ourselves. Where in my life have I mistaken avoiding discomfort for protecting love? Because sometimes we need to have those very difficult conversations. That's the foresight to be able to have a strong relationship. Sometimes that momentary discomfort might be like, you meet someone who's very good looking and you're attracted to them, but you have to draw that boundary by having the foresight not to go there in order to preserve this relationship and to be with the person that you love. And this theme, actually, with the comfort and discomfort of love, avoidance, avoiding realities, for a lot of people, this will be the theme of the upcoming eclipses, especially considering that it's happening in the Falguni nakshatras, if we take that into consideration, and the Bhadrapadas, but we'll talk about that in the upcoming videos. Now we come to the day of the week. We're going to have Sun ingress into the sign of Virgo, and right away, Moon's going to enter into the sign of Virgo, and at 0 degrees, we're going to have a new moon. And please remember, Mr. Mr. South Node is also in this sign. So this is the precursor to what is coming up for the eclipses. We have arrived. Set up, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, set up. We have arrived. And to give you a heads up right away, this is a very disruptive new moon. And let's get right into it. So this is not a typical Virgo season where Sun enters the sign of Virgo. And then suddenly we have this inclination to put things into order, to organize things, to be methodical about our plans, make life visions, goals, or to just simplify the system so everything's practical and operational, not this ingress of the Sun. And I want you to keep in mind that this feeling that comes on Thursday is going to last for 5 days until the Sun moves past that 5-degree mark in the sign of Virgo. And within that 5-degree marks for 5 days, it is squaring Uranus. And this is important because Uranus has not been in the sign of Gemini for most of us in our lifetime. So this square from Virgo to the sign of Gemini to Uranus, Sun and Uranus, we'll come to it. So this lunation and this ingress of the Sun has a particular destabilizing intensity because of Uranus. So I was saying, you come into the sign of Virgo, you want to create a sense of order, but right away your order is met with chaos. Very frustrating. And even though I was mentioning Ketu is far away from this lunation because Ketu, I believe, is about 18 degrees and this lunation is happening at 0 degrees. But because Ketu's sitting in that sign, It's creating a karmic undercurrent to all the happenings. So the moon, by entering into the sign of Virgo right after the sun, is an onset in showing us how the systems that we've put into place for the past 18 years, because that's the last time Ketu was here, the systems that we've relied on, they just don't match our current reality. This is what the eclipses are going to be about. And I've talked about this in the last set of eclipses that we had in Virgo Pisces. So you can refer back to that video until we get to the next set of videos for this axis. So this lunation is the onset of unraveling these systems that we built to give our life a sense of order, the way we make life practical and functional. So this chaotic energy is coming both from Uranus and from Ketu being present in the sign of Virgo. And in a lot of ways, this lunation is a test. It's a stress test. It's saying, let's see where you really have control. So what does that usually mean? If I pose a question like that, that means something's going to feel like it's out of our control. And one of the ways that this could show up, let's say you have a tendency to overplan. You're just a planner and you usually feel very confident about life because you have a plan. This is a Virgo quality and a Capricorn quality, by the way. But here with this lunation, as I've said in another video with my martial art instructor used to say to me, expect nothing but be prepared for the unexpected, because the unexpected for the planner in you will be the teacher here. And then if you are one of those other types of people where your instinct is to avoid order, you actually find order in chaos, this week is going to show the cost of drifting and not having a sense of order. So we can't be stubbornly holding on and we can't be loosey-goosey either. The pivot point is always finding a center and then being able to pivot. And then we also have to remember, because Ketu's here and Ketu's always asking for a kind of a detachment and letting go. In the sign of Virgo, Ketu's asking us to let go of the old rules, the patterns that we have set into place so methodically for the past 18 years. Ketu's showing us bit by bit, starting with this lunation, the rules no longer apply. You are not attached and connected to your life, and I'm going to start showing you this. It's going to start showing us that the same application doesn't give you the usual results that it's supposed to. It ought to. And hey, we got balloons. We definitely don't want balloons for this part. And confettis. It's a party, guys. It's going to be a party in the sign of Virgo. And then considering Uranus in the mix, is just hyper accentuating all of this, that disruption that's going to come from this. But that said, if the old systems are going to collapse, if we have to rewrite everything because the rules of the past 18 years don't apply, that doesn't mean we can operate in this life without patternizing something new. That means life trajectory is shifting with these eclipses. We're going to be engaged in new projects, in new ways of planning, in new ways of organizing. And they have already begun, maybe in the smallest form. And the point right now is because of that detachment that Ketu is bringing, it can bring a sense of disillusionment. I don't want to engage. But that's not the point. Because when all of this is said and done, we're supposed to be going somewhere, doing something. So begin whatever project that you have in mind, even if your tools aren't ready and perfect yet. And instead of losing your mind and getting frustrated that the old things don't work, just take note of how things are being disrupted, how your mind is becoming unorganized. This is actually opening a door for you in terms of what you need to change, but you have to be able to perceive it. And it's very hard to perceive things when we're operating from a place of pure frustration, which can turn into anger. Also reflect on Virgo themes, because these could be part of the eclipse and it's coming through now, which includes our health, how we make ourselves of service to other people, how we need to be precise, the way we feel we need to be practical, methodical, and think about what all of this has meant for you in this chapter of the past 18 years and how you would like to implement them for the next 18 years. It's very hard to make 18-year plans, but as an idea, as an inspiration. And I would say, because it's an eclipse, during an eclipse, the best realization you can have is to start understanding, meditate on, contemplate, evaluate what's coming to an end. Because this is the best way to get an inclination of what you actually need to let go. Don't resist Ketu. Give in to Ketu, because now we're supposed to be going somewhere else. But you need an inclination of where Rahu is, what Rahu's trying to do, where we're going. And it's important to remember, it's very hard to let go of certain things Like making an exit could mean I'm leaving the beloved behind me. I'm leaving something behind me because it's an exit point. But that threshold, that doorway, that exit is simultaneously an entrance to something new. And when we know where we're entering, there's a sense of ease about it, even though what might be ahead is uncomfortable. Usually the worst things that happen in life is because we don't know what's coming up. But standing calm, letting go of what needs to, being flexible at this time, willing to negotiate with the moments and what it's bringing, it can help us move through with greater ease. And I plead with you, if you have perfectionist tendencies, become aware of it. I'm not going to say change it, because if it was that easy, then we will all just change everything, but become aware of it. Because during this time, those perfectionist tendencies can play themselves out like OCD, which is to just obsessively and compulsively try to fit a square inside a circle. The old rules don't apply. And those perfectionist tendencies of wanting the old thing to work because I worked on it for so long, it's actually going to prevent you from pivoting. It's going to prevent you from seeing what's ahead. And that with itself brings a lot of psychological burden. As a matter of fact, this is the moment to see the imperfection of what we've built, how we've been doing it. That's one of the ways that it's going to get easier to let it go. With Ketu there, we are supposed to feel disconnected and dissatisfied to a certain degree. And we're just starting to grasp what this is with that ingress, with that lunation. This is more of a time of just being like, all right, what can I just do with who I am today, with what I have and where I'm at? No perfection. Things don't have to be just systemized, methodical, full-on application, ready to go. I don't need anything to be perfect. I just need to show up as I am, the way that I am. I'm willing. I'm willing to negotiate with the moment and to set myself into this trajectory for another 18-year plus. And I was going to hold off the big self-inventory question of the week for the end of the video, but I actually think it's appropriate to talk about it in this moment. Just ask yourself, am I the type of person? Do I have a tendency when the rules I've set into place to live by stop working? Do I actually cling harder? Do I obsess? Do I want to make it work even harder? Or do you have it in you to rewrite them? The willingness to change and to shift. And it's really good if we can arrive to that point where we can answer yes, because that's what eclipses do. They change things and it's uncomfortable. And this question is at the heart of the narrative of this week with all the transits that are happening. But let's keep moving because we still have 2 more days to go. So now we arrive on Saturday, August 23rd. And now we have Moon and Ketu conjunct at 18 degrees of Virgo. And we can call this conjunction a karmic nudge or a karmic reminder, because a karmic batch is coming up with all these eclipses, the inevitable. And this conjunction is occurring right after the lunation of the new moon. So Ketu here is going to feel like a disturbing deja vu. It feels like the moon represents our emotions and our mind, right? So it's like and Ketu represents the past, what's backward. Like in PTSD, suddenly you have an emotional flashback. So it's like falling into our old emotional pattern suddenly. Something triggers it and we're back there. It's kind of unfortunate that this is happening in the sign of Virgo, because what does Virgo do? Virgo's not just going to feel it and be like, oh my God, I felt it. That was so deep. It's going to overanalyze. So our tendency is going to be overanalysis of this flashback. And then what are the other tendencies of Virgo? It can be a perfectionist, right? So it's trying to analyze, get to the crux of it, how to make it perfect. And the point right now is not to make things perfect, is to actually let it go. That's what Ketu wants ultimately in this eclipse is coming up. And Ketu here is really about the stripping off the old with the moon. We're having this recollection, this remembering, this flashback, so that we become aware, so we know what we're letting go. Ketu in the sign of Virgo with the eclipses is about removal of old habits and patterns. And one of the problems with Ketu is like Ketu doesn't move things swiftly, so it's just done. Eclipses can, but Ketu by itself as a conjunction, it will bring this subconscious aspect of the minds into a point of being recollected with the moon. And then it's asking us to slowly make things fade away. Ketu in general makes things over time fade away until they are unreachable. They lose all differentiation and distinction. And a lot of times this in our life feels like apathy and detachment. And this is a prominent feeling on Saturday, apathy and detachment after this very intense emotional flashback, which is disturbing in itself, the contrast of it. It's like nothing really brings pleasure, and the moon wants pleasure. It wants comfort. It went from having all that comforty feeling in the sign of Cancer with Venus and Jupiter. And now by the end of the week, the contrast again is a bit too much, but these kind of contrasts are bringing things into our attention and our awareness. That's why I'm saying if we're self-reflective, we can see what's upcoming in the eclipses, as unexpected as they are a lot of times. So if we pay attention, we're going to see what's fading away, what needs to fade away, what the process of it is, and what kind of space we need to clear for something new to grow. And this is a theme with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer anyway, the entire year. I'm talking about nakshatras. It went through Arja, right? Clear that inner space, clear things out of our life. In this nakshatra of Punarvasu, I will talk about this in the next video, is about redo things, regenerate things. And then by the time it comes into Pushya, by the end of its transit, it's going to be about flourishing and nourishing some new forms. So right now, it's like we are taking the things that have already been destroyed, especially when that Mars was in the sign of Cancer doing all this thing. Now we have to take a lot of things that were destroyed and figure out how to redo and regenerate. And Ketu is conspiring in this. The eclipses are conspiring in this. And think about where Rahu's sitting. It's in one of the signs for Jupiter. Now I'm going off the deep end, and then this video is going to be like 2 hours long. So I'll stop myself here and come back to the outline. In general, we are supposed to be making space and letting the old that's no longer useful fade away. So this is the function of Ketu. And what I suggest for Saturday, because these things, the contrast of this week, how it starts and then how it's ending is a lot. And one of the things that really helps is journaling, especially when Moon and Ketu are involved. And I say this because a lot of these patterns that are emerging, the way that we're acting, the way that we're feeling, they're subconscious. They're not on the conscious level. The moon can represent the conscious mind and the subconscious. And Ketu is the subconscious and the unconscious. So you can just journal in terms of how you feel undone. It will help you understand the underlying reason behind it, why it's happening. Writing has this magic in it. Writing is going to let Ketu show up in your words. Ketu doesn't talk. Ketu is silence. But when you write, Ketu will show up, and you'll see it in words where you're expressing quiet disinterest. You'll see that you're writing about tasks or aspects of life that are no longer of interest to you. You'll talk about things that no longer nourish you and feel burdensome, and you wish you could just take a sword and cut it off. These are the kind of wording that comes out when you're journaling. And during this writing, I would encourage you not to enforce clarity. Just let your insights and your feelings, whatever is coming out, to come out very naturally. Don't become a perfectionist. Just a stream of consciousness, downloading itself onto your conscious mind because it's appearing on the page or on your computer screen. No judgment, no forcing. It helps when we can see what's happening in order to do that pivot that we'll be asked to do very forcefully in September. And now we move on to the last day of the week, which is Sunday, August 24th. And this is a very strange day. It's like stepping into the Twilight Zone. On this day, Mercury clears its retrograde shadow degrees. So it's reached the 15-degree mark. So what lays ahead? Unknown. Because we're not redoing, we're not going back, we're not trying to get things right the second time. Venus, where is Venus? Venus is at 29 degrees of Cancer at a critical degree, also called the Gandanta point. And there's another saying is a Twilight Zone. Venus is at 29 degrees. The Antisha for Venus is Gemini, and the Antisha degree here for Venus is 1 degree of Gemini. Who's at 1 degree of Gemini? Uranus. And another thing, on the same day, Jupiter in Vedic astrology has special aspects. The 5th aspect, which is a trine, and the 9th aspect, which is also a trine. So it's casting his 9th aspect onto Rahu in the sign of Pisces in its own sign. So let's unpack this. So let's start actually with Venus at 29 degrees of Cancer. So Venus is at that critical Gandanta point degree. This is where a planet is crossing that threshold between a water sign into a fire sign. So it's a threshold between elements that are not naturally complementary. So the transition is too much. That's why the Gandanta point is like having a karmic knot that is tight so tightly that is hard to undo it. And the karmic knot related to Venus here, because it is in the sign of Cancer, what does it mean to be so attached to your own internal feelings and processings? And because you're so attached, you might have become too sentimental about it. And this moment, this time is now asking you to express your internal content externally. But if you're attached, so attached internally, that's the knot. How can you bring yourself to express it externally in the sign of Leo? And these karmic knots are going to be related to our internal processing, the ways that we've been protecting things, because this is what the sign of Cancer is about, protecting, containing, how we've internalized our desires, idealized affection, because we have to be able to express it. We can't just operate on that internal realm. So the element of water in the sign of Cancer is saying, I'll hold this close to myself. And by keeping it close to myself, I'm keeping it safe. The element of Leo as fire is saying, I need to show it now and I need to act on it. So Venus is being torn between this concept of internal, sorry, my whole table started shaking, between this concept of internal and external. And because it's in that critical degree, finding the right emotion, the balance between the right emotion and the right action is not going to be easy. And then we also have to remember, it's not going to be easy on its own because it's stuck in this in-between world. But it's also not going to be easy because Venus is forming that Antisha with one of the most disruptive planets. And the Antisha points, they're like the mirror reflection of the two sides of the charts. The Antisha point of Cancer is always going to be Gemini. I will make a separate video describing this concept. I just encourage you to look it up if you don't know what it is, just to get a feel for it. But when two planets are in Antisha, they're making a secret promise. It's like in the background that they will deliver this promise. And Venus is making a promise with who? With Uranus, the most disruptive planet, as I just mentioned. So you can rest assured that we are disruptively going to be forced to act because Venus is leaving that internal space. And we might not have the willingness to do it, but the external world could represent some things, some events where we are forced to do it in a very disruptive manner. So this transition from water to fire, even though it's always problematic, it's not going to have the same flair as it usually does. The transition's not smooth. Like something might happen, you might even just have an insight or realization that just jolts you into a different kind of a reality. Like, I can't keep relating to this person or to this goal or to this creative endeavor. I just need to act different. I can't. Like the way that I've been thinking about this, I just can't do it. I can't do it. Again, as you can see, is bringing these pivot points in very subtle ways, but with this one is not so subtle. And now going back to Mercury, leaving its shadow degrees now. From here forth is going to go past that 15-degree mark. So we're done reviewing. We're going to move forward. And when Mercury goes retrograde, we can actually linger to the intellect. It's almost like we get a license to think things through. But now things are happening so fast, you don't even have time to think. You just have to keep marching forward. And we got to remember, at this point, Mercury is also picking up speed. As the planet, its movement is picking up speed. So it's going to be a lot of quick thinking in our feet to be able to act. And going back to the beginning of the week, Mercury is still in the sign of Leo. And to now assert ourselves, and Venus is coming to join the team. And now just going to our last point, which is Jupiter making its special aspect to Rahu in the sign of Pisces from Cancer. This trine is creating a harmonious, a good sense of wanting to expand our realm of horizon at the same time when all of this is happening. So in reality, we don't want to be held back anymore either. There's now a new hunger for more meaning, for more to do things differently. That's what Rahu is about. Things of the past are naturally coming to feel meaningless. So going back to that Ketu in the sign of Virgo and the eclipses coming up, change is always hard because we don't know what's ahead. But in hindsight, when we look back, we're like, thank God there was that change. And it's like the moment's conspiring right now for us to have these changes. And if there's any residue of resistance in us, if we pay attention, if we do the journaling, if we do the self-inventory questions, we'll see so much of it is coming from our fear of the unknown rather than actually giving up things that we do love, things that hold a lot of meaning, because we are feeling that things are past due. And this trine of Jupiter to Rahu is amplifying this to the oomph degree. Jupiter makes things, expands things, and Rahu amplifies things. So we are feeling it. The way to see Sunday is, yes, it's glitchy. It's like entering the Twilight Zone, is being forced to do things. But at the same time, it's an internal permission, it's a permission from the universe to allow yourself to start acting on things that you've just been feeling, thinking about, holding it on a back burner because things are not perfect yet. So we're getting the license to actually act, as scary as it may be. And on Sunday, Uranus is telling us, even if you think you know where you're going, I'm going to show you you don't know where you're going. Or at least things are not going to look the way you imagine them. At least not the start. It's not going to be like the way you imagined it. So our psyche has to reconcile the excitement for change with the unease and the unpredictability that's in the air right now. And an advice, if opportunities come in whatever shape or form, dressed in whatever way, don't dismiss them this week, especially towards the end of the week. Explore them, even if it's from a distance. Study them, because they are signs telling you where things are going. And just to have the slightest bit of inclination about where we're going is going to make this whole process a lot easier. And we like to shun such a phrase, but sometimes it's necessary in life. Let yourself want more. Allow yourself to dream and to imagine. Imagine new ways, because this is what this time's about. And you know what? That Aries with Saturn and Neptune conjunct there, it really, since May, it started screwing with our sense of imagination and dreaming. And if we don't have a vision, this is what I'm saying, sometimes it's good, because it creates a sense of vision, a sense of direction in life. And that way we can align our thoughts and our actions to move down a pathway, if nothing else. And Saturn has screwed with this. So it's kind of like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. Why is nothing working out? I don't even know what I want anymore. So this is also a shift. It's a permission to be able to dream, imagine, envision, have a vision, even though we're not going to know the practical application for it until the axis, all the eclipses on this axis of Virgo and Pisces are over. But it's a step by step, baby step. We learn how to walk, we sprint, and then we go to the Olympic and we get the gold medal for sprinting. So I'm going to leave you with that. And as I said, I will come back to do the nakshatra video for the transits. I really hope tomorrow is very tight, but I'm going to try my best to do this video. It's going to be short and sweet, get to the point. And I'll leave that off for now. I'm wishing you a beautiful and a blessed week, and I'll see you guys soon. Sending you much love. Till next time.